welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Dan Reed and it is officially summertime. I don't know where you are, but where I am, the weather is officially warm. We just finished our 10th winter of the year and fingers crossed that is that. But because it is summertime, I have been inspired. So the next few videos are going to have a theme, and you'll catch on to the theme pretty soon, but it is the great outdoors. I was inspired by all those films that, those horror movies about the things that go bump in the night in the forest, that feeling of always being watched, campfire stories. While I'm not a camper myself, I love the idea of campfire stories. So, to kick off this series, let's read a couple of scary Reddit stories about camping. Again, my name is Damreed, and if you like things spooky slash educational or anthropology, that's my shit too. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can not only follow along with this series, but also so you can follow along with future videos. And if these videos are not your speed, I also have videos about ghosts and vampire burials, and I have so much more planned. My list is never ending. So let's get into it. Scariest things you have experienced in the woods. Colonial 1-3. I was 16 years old, camping with just the family dog on some property my family owned in northern Michigan. Family dog was a Chow Black Lab mix, built like a tank, but ridiculously mild mannered. Second night, we're up there. I wake up in the middle of the night to the dog standing in the middle of the tent, teeth bared, hackles up, the damn near subsonic growl coming out of him. He's doing a slow turn, obviously tracking something that is moving around the tent. I can hear footsteps and a kind of snort, breathing from outside. My dog does a full revolution and is facing back towards the entrance flap. And I'm just laying there trying to find my flashlight and barely breathing. After what felt like an eternity, but couldn't have been more than a few minutes, he starts to relax and eventually calms down enough to sit next to me, but he won't take his attention off the flap. We both stayed awake, staring at the entrance until the sun was up, and then I did the fastest campsite pack up of my life and headed back to civilization. See, this one is kind of ominous because, like, footsteps? What do you mean? What kind of footsteps? Like, animal footsteps or human footsteps? And I don't know what is more scarier. I don't know. I think maybe human, a human sneaking around your campsite. That seems a little too scary for me. I mean, animals, you expect to see animals, and a lot of the times, if you don't mess with them, they will not mess with you. This one is r/creepy national parks. Strange man in the dark. Okay, so back in March of 2022, my wife, 37F, and I, 38 male, were on a road trip to California. We were driving from Texas and hadn't really planned too much. I guess we were just winging it, if that just makes any sense. We definitely wanted to stop at Joshua Tree National Park for a day, and after that, just explore. We ended up driving out to the Sunset Cliffs in San Diego, then back up to the Los Angeles area by our third or fourth day, just trying food and seeing views, local spots and stuff like that. After checking distance and finding things to do along the way, we decided to take Highway 1 all the way up through Big Sur to San Francisco. Highway 1 is a beautiful drive, and we stopped at a few places along the way. We spent most of the day on the highway, and as we got further north, the trees seemed to get taller as we entered Big Sur. My wife mentioned how she wanted to pull over and get off for a while. She's a photographer, so most of the trip consisted of us pulling over and her setting up her camera for these mini shoots. We decided to stop at Andrew Molera State Park. The parking area was off of Highway 1 near Ventana Wildlife Society in case anyone likes to go on maps and track the story. When we parked, there was one other vehicle in the parking lot. My wife was a little iffy at first because the location was kind of secluded and we didn't see anyone else there. We got off and got our backpacks and her camera gear. My wife said the trail was about a mile to the beach, so we figured it would be about 30 to 40 minutes to walk if we took our time. We left the parking lot and headed down a dirt road opposite of the direction we pulled in from. We could see a couple walking in our direction, so I asked how long the walk was to the beach. The man said about 15 minutes, so we figured maybe it was a shorter walk than the map said. The road didn't go too far before it took a hard right and we had to cross Big Sur River, Creamery Meadow Trail, in brackets. Not wanting to get our shoes wet, we took them off and crossed barefoot. The water was ice cold and got as deep as our mid thighs. It felt like needles. We made it across and went to the trail, which was not 15 minutes. I remember we got to a fork in the trail. The trail to the left was marked, and I think it said something about an observation point, and the trail going straight had no sign but was more to find. We went straight. The sun was getting low, and I was telling my wife how it's going to be getting dark soon, but she had her gear and wanted to go on. I agreed, and we pushed forward. Towards the end, the trail got a bit obscure, and we seemed to be swallowed by the trees all around. We were having second thoughts when all of a sudden I could hear waves. The trail opened up, and we walked to the trees on the sands of a pretty awesome beach with the most beautiful view of Malera Point. The beach was empty. There wasn't anyone here. At least we didn't think so. My wife wanted to change her outfit and get out of her hiking clothes into a dress for her mini shoot. So while she was doing that, I set up the camera and tripod. She did her shoot. Beautiful sunset, but the sun setting meant it was going to be dark soon. After getting all her stuff put up and packed, we turned towards the trail and there was a man walking towards us. And there was a man walking towards the trees too. He didn't look at us. He was just quiet, and I can remember him wearing some beige shorts and a light colored shirt with one of those floppy hiking hats with the brim that goes all the way around. We were a bit spooked at first, but I told my wife at least we weren't alone. The man walked ahead of us at a faster pace. The sun was going down, so I pull my flashlight from the side pocket of my back pocket and I drop it. I'm a dumbass. The bottom part that holds the back batteries broke off and wouldn't stay closed anymore. My luck. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. It was definitely not going to work, but we kept walking. At least we could see where we were stepping. We couldn't see the man anymore, but we could hear his steps ahead of us, crunching on the gravel. Somewhere along the way, the sound of his steps disappeared without us realizing it. We tried to walk faster for what seemed like forever. We were getting worried about bears or whatever inhabited the area. And suddenly I could hear the river. We were almost there. We got to the edge of the water, and out of nowhere, there he was. The man was standing there, in the dark. He had no flashlight either, and didn't talk or look our way. He began crossing as we were taking off our shoes. We jumped into the icy water and tried to cross as fast as we could. We made it to the other side as the man was walking away. We rushed to get our shoes on because it was dark as hell at this point. We started hurrying back up to the dirt road, trying to catch up with the strange guy, but it felt safer the more people there were. Because it felt more safer the more people there were. We made it to the parking lot and now we were getting those chills like something was watching. I'm not sure how to describe the feeling. We throw our stuff into the Explorer and get in. We start the car and back out and realize there's no other cars in the parking lot. We drive up the road towards the main highway, and that guy is nowhere to be seen. We saw no other car headlights, brake lights, nothing. We're in the middle of nowhere, and we should have seen him if he was walking back up the road. Nothing. I asked my wife a dumb question. What if that was a ghost? She told me to shut the fuck up, and we drove. I still think about it to this day. A man with no backpack, no flashlight, in the middle of nowhere in the dark, never looked toward us, never spoke. I feel like that is a valid question. What if it was a ghost? What if less scary than the thought of a man with walking around with nothing, just chilling in the woods at night? That's a ghost is definitely less scarier than that scenario. What are your creepiest stories from the national parks or forests? R/backwoods creepy. Last information 6129 said, this happened 5 years ago with me and my cousin, and it's a pretty long story. I live in South Carolina, and I live in a pretty nice house right in front of the tree line. It was Friday, March 21st, and me and my cousin slept in the living room that night after planning out a camping trip for one day in the same forest that was in front of my house. I was the first to wake up around 9:30 and woke my cousin up. And from there we packed up full of supplies for the day. We hiked into the woods, and the area where we were in was extremely dense from a storm that passed through 6 months ago. There were trenches 5 feet wide and 5 feet down everywhere, and you couldn't even run because there were so many downed trees everywhere. We found a campsite eventually and decided to set up there, and over the span of the next 2 hours, we built our survival shelter, complete with a roof and all. But we kept hearing these noises out maybe 50 feet away. It sounded like an axe going to a tree, and once in a while, it would be water splashing around. We were getting paranoid. We've been in these woods a million times, but wrote it off since we were near a creek. But here's the scary part. I was adding the final touches of this roof to our shelter, and my cousin was adding the touches to the walls and whatnot. All of a sudden, I hear a human sound, like they were calling a dog over to them. I immediately looked up, but I was calm. I knew that it was probably a human, so I entered full protective mode over my cousin. He's a bit of a young one. I had to watch him I had him watch where the noises came from as I packed up our stuff. I let him lead the way out of the woods since he knew the way, and I didn't want the this is in quotations human behind us to get him first. Right as we were walking from our site, I looked one last time where the noise came from, and to my horror, I see a masked man, maybe 20 feet away, who looked like he was white in color. He had on all black, and believe me, I was terrified, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to scare myself or my cousin. I just told him to hurry. 30 minutes later, we were maybe 100 feet from the tree line, and I could barely see my house from there. In the corner of my eye, I see the same masked man running from tree to tree as if he was following us. I didn't say anything once again because I thought I was hallucinating and I didn't want to work the two of us up. Once we finally broke the tree line, me and my cousin sprinted to my home and slammed the door shut behind us. That's when he told me he's seen the exact same man running from tree to tree. I will never go in those woods alone ever again, especially not in the area where the story happened. I promise it's true, and I teared up talking about it on here. I truly believe if I didn't hear that sound, we might be missing or worse. We were 20 feet away from what was most likely death. I do not like that at all. Why is there a masked man in the woods? And if it's a hallucination, why is it a shared hallucination? I do not like that one. That was scary. Um, Singit Society, Signet Society. I spend a chronic amount of time in the woods/desert, so I have a few. These all took place in northwestern Wisconsin. When I was 12, I found a small red shoe that looked to have been a toddler pressed halfway into the mud by an old beech tree. It just gave me an immediate uneasy feeling. Another strange find was a very large black garbage bag tucked underneath a huge white pine tree. A morbid a morbid curiosity came over me. I need to stop reading ahead to investigate it, and sure enough, it was full of gallon Ziploc bags, each completely filled with blood. My mind got hit with the immediate cold feeling of dread. I hope you called the police. And I hope it wasn't actually blood. It just looked like blood, or maybe it was just animal. Best case scenario. During a hike down a trail that meandered through wetlands, I came across an abandoned house off trail on higher ground in the absolute middle of the woods. I found several abandoned buildings in the forest before, and I actually love explore them regularly. The difference with this one is that it wasn't that old compared to every other one I've come across. It wasn't dilapidated in the way all of the others had been. There were no roads for about 10 miles, and I was at least a mile off trail. Despite being puzzled by all of this, I wasn't deterred from investigating it. I circled the house and found the back door to be the ideal entrance. There was an intact 1970s television and lots of waterlogged furniture and books. The first bedroom was just an iron bed frame with no mattress. The second was directly next to the first. I peeked in and noticed this one had a mattress on the bed frame that looked considerably newer to the other furniture. It was still very dirty, but was clear of debris that everything else was covered in. Then my eyes then my eyes were drawn to the large Ziploc bag on the mattress that had a bottle of shampoo, papers, and other small bottles. All of these items looked to be brand new. Thankfully, my instincts immediately clicked in that moment, and I calmly but quickly backtracked out of the house. Someone was living there. While in that moment, I was freaked out like no other in hindsight. It just makes me kind of sad. We don't have homeless people in this particular region, normally due to the temperatures dropping as far down as minus 55 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know how cold that is in the winter, and rural Wisconsin offer no infrastructure for the homeless. If I came across that person again, I would do what I could to help them within my ability. Well, that's nice. That is really nice. Under the same thread, desperate currency 65. I am a 28F and I like to solo travel. This past summer, I headed to Moab, MOAB, to stargaze and hit a couple of the parks over there. Because I was mainly going due to its dark site status, I wanted to stay somewhere with as little light pollution from the town as possible. I found this ranch online that's property line butts up against the Canyonlands National Park, so I paid the owner to sleep on his land. He did this as a business. Super remote, basically had to take an unpaved service road many miles to even get there. My tent was set up at the very edge of the property line. Everything to my right was basically heading into the Needles district of the park. After laying on my cot, staring at the stars for a couple hours, I decided to head to bed. Just before bed, I heard footsteps. very rocky slash gray, very gravel slash rocky area in brackets, just outside my tent to my left. But I figured it was just an animal. I ended up falling asleep, but at 3:45ish in the morning, I was woken up by something. I thought it was just the wind because the whole night had been pretty dead silent up until then. But then I heard more shuffling around, maybe like 4 footsteps, but now coming from my right. Just as just as I was about to convince myself it was nothing, I saw a flash go off outside my tent. I started realizing that since I was technically on a ranch, even on the edge of it, maybe the owner had some sort of satellite on one of the red rocks and it was flashing every couple of minutes. As I try to sleep again, my eyes are just closing. Another flash goes off outside. But this time it was way closer and brighter, coming from a different area. To be clear, it wasn't just a flash and that's it. It was literally like a camera flash. Like I saw the kind of double shutter a camera flash makes. And I could also see the main circle of light at the center of the flash that then plumes out, like a camera flash does. I hope I'm explaining that right. Anyway, for the next 2.5 hours, the flash would circle around my tent, coming from all different directions, sometimes super close to the canvas of my tent, sometimes further away and duller. But I never heard any footsteps circling me, and I absolutely would have. The final straw that made me literally fear for my life was one last flash coming right at my tent door. It literally looked like someone had the camera right up to the zipper and clicked a photo. I have been trying to come up with a non creepy explanation for this. At first, I thought it was maybe lunar photographers, but literally the number one rule of lunar photography is no lights, no flash. My other theory was heat lightning, but then I would have seen the light coming from overhead and not right against my tent, not to mention the distinct center circle of the light that then plumed out. Super unsettling, and I will only be solo camping in my car from now on. Yeah, that would do it for me. I would be not solo camping at all. So you're still braver than I. Someone said that a likely explanation is some sort of UFO orb thing. I mean, that's a little more comforting than the thought of someone taking pictures outside your camera, outside your tent, sorry. Have you ever had a creepy encounter with other folks at a campground slash state or national park? This is in r slash camping. Stinky Banana Cheese says, me and a few friends were resting on the side of a trail. About 15 feet away, a middle aged man stops in the middle of the trail and is just staring at us, smiling, not breaking eye contact. I was thinking, okay, this is weird, but whatever. Next thing I know, he pulls out a machete and starts walking fast straight towards us, still smiling and not breaking eye contact. He walks about 2 feet past. You just stood there? Oh my god. He walks about 2 feet past me, and I was about to shove this guy down on the rocks on the side of the trail, but he passed, then chopped a small 1 foot tall bush for no reason. And he was trying to freak y'all out. Why else would he have been smiling? He never said a word, then just continued down the trail after that. After my friends and I had talked and were all thinking about pushing this guy off the edge, but glad we didn't. He's now known as Machete Man, and maybe he thought it was funny, but almost got himself seriously injured. I still don't know why he did that. I don't know. I don't know why he did that. I don't know why you stood there. I saw a man in the woods with a machete. I'm hoping to God I can outrun him. That's all I'm gonna say. I see a man in the woods, period. r slash ask Reddit. What is the creepiest thing you've seen in the woods, or in the mountains, or in the deserts, or caves, or in small towns, or in remote or rural areas, or while on large bodies of water, or while on an aircraft or nautical vessel? That was a long one. I sleep with your demons, said. I was driving home after an extremely late night at work. I lived in the middle of nowhere. About a mile before I got there, About a mile before I got there, a woman covered in blood jumped out of the woods into the middle of the road screaming. I panicked and went around her, then slammed on the brakes to help. Her boyfriend had beat her and was currently chasing after her in the woods. I got her in my car and called the police. They met us in the hospital because I told us there was no way I was waiting on the side of the road when he was coming. That that one was just too real. It is so good that you were there. Thank God to help that woman. Ugh. Shaka underscore Zulu 12 went on a mountain hike in Transylvania with a group of friends from high school. And way up, after maybe 12 to 14 kilometers of trekking, we saw a house. It was in the middle of the nowhere. It had a barn with a few animals, a couple of cows, chickens, etc. As we got closer, we see a few people, a guy and 5 to 6 women. Not sure if there were more inside. The dude comes to greet us, barely speaking the language. We had a hard time understanding what he's saying. They lived without electricity, gas, anything. This was in the early 90s, so there's no internet, mobile phones to worry about, at least for most people. Anyways, they all looked weird, kind of dumb expressions on their face, and we can barely understand each other. They asked us who's president now and if we wanted some milk. They look at our clothes and shoes weirdly, curious. Like, who knows when the last time they had human contact? Or maybe there were more crazies around this parts. I don't know. Not sure to this day what was going on. It's not typical in the region, so we kind of freaked out, especially because the dude looked a bit disturbed, and we were too young. We were looking around to see if there's more of them. Paranoia was getting to us, thinking there must be a village nearby. What was also weird is that all the women kept their distance and never got close to us, like he was guarding them or checking us out if it's safe for them. One of my friends kept saying, "We don't want their milk and we need to go because it's getting dark." We calmly walked for a while. Then, when we thought we were out of their sight, bolted like crazy out of there. Needless to say, we camped after a few hours and we always had one person awake to keep watch. We told people that were living in the villages near that area about the mountain people, and they didn't believe us. They said nobody lives up there, up in those mountains. Maybe they were just messing with you. Like, what? Mountain people? They were just gaslighting you. But yeah, that is scary. Uh, I wouldn't, I don't know how far you are from society, but I would not have stayed in those woods tonight. If you got that uneasy feeling about them, I would not. Mm. Colin, Dark Claw. A little over 18 years ago, I had just gotten out of the military. I drove all the way from Louisiana to my hometown in Montana without incident. I spent a few days at home and then got back on the road because my new home destination was Boise, Idaho. It was February, so instead of going straight down the length of the state, I cut across the panhandle of Idaho into Washington. The highway was going straight through the state is The highway going straight down through the state is really twisty and very dangerous in the winter. So I crossed the state line into Washington. It was a Sunday and it was very, very early in the morning. As cliche as it sounds, there was quite a bit of fog in the air. I had been driving for a while and I really had to use the bathroom. Now, normally, given how I was out in the middle of nowhere, I would normally just pull to the side and took a whiz, but since it was foggy and hard to see, I thought it was safer to just wait until I hit the next small town. So I drove for maybe 5 more miles and I started seeing signs for a town. And I can't remember for the life of me the name of the town. I think it was Linden or Linder, something like that. It was on I-90 going through Spokane Valley. So I head towards the sign, which was right turn off the interstate. And it was a short drive up this road. And I reached the town. It was small, but I thought nothing of it since I was from a small town in Montana. Now here is where things get odd. There was not a single person to be found. There were cars and a business, but not a single person to be found. No one walking on the street, no lodging trucks driving everything, was just still in the air. I stopped at a gas station. It was one of those one in all places that did car repair, tires, but no one was at the counter. I thought, well, maybe it's just really early. So I ran around to the side of the building to see if the bathroom was locked, and it was. As I made my way back to the front of the building, I saw a delivery truck. It was a Coke Classic truck, except it wasn't moving. Its headlights were on, the hazards were on, and the passenger and driver sides were open, just sitting there in the middle of the street. Yes, I was getting a bad vibe, so I got back in my car and went back the way I came. I got back on the I-90 and thought again about just pissing on the side of the road, but honestly, I was too afraid. I continued driving until I hit Spokane. I was more than a bit freaked out and had completely forgotten I had to piss. We all been there, buddy. I didn't see anything creepy or hear anything creepy, but the stillness in the air and complete lack of life, human or animal, was just terrifying and unsettling. I looked on the map to where I was once I got to Spokane, which was Rand McNally's map because GPS and phones were just not a thing yet, and I could not find it all on the map. Even as I'm writing this, I looked at Google Maps and nothing by the name of Linden, Linder, or otherwise is on the map. Is on the map. I still to this day will never forget that feeling of just freaky displacement I felt there. When I got to Boise, I told my friend about it, and he thought I was just trying to rip off Silent Hill or Resident Evil. And honestly, I can't blame people for saying that. But at the same time, that was the reason I wouldn't piss on the side of the road. I kept recalling that part in Resident Evil 1 where the hikers were killed by murderous dogs. Anyway, if you stuck around for this long, thanks for reading. And if you know of the town on Highway 2 between Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Spokane, Washington, people let me know. If you are from there, I mean no offense, but your town is creepy as fuck. Edit, I have to correct myself after going back over my trip. I didn't stay on Highway 2. I actually jumped on I-90 and then went over to Spokane. Oh, there's an update. Oh, apparently he tried to replicate that road trip. This is an update from 2019. Okay, people, I found the place. It's Lind, Washington, as someone in the comments said. Confirmed. And once again, there were no people. I looked online. I looked up online some details. It has a supposedly just over population over just over 500 people. There was a high school there. There was a high school, but the population was so low they had them kids move to another town. The funny part is you can see from the pictures there's no one around, no kids playing. Well, that's that then. At least it wasn't a mysterious town. I heard a story of someone where they took a road trip with their dad and they stopped in this town for like lunch or something. And then at a later time, they tried to drive through that town again and it wasn't there and it wasn't on any maps. That's where I thought that was going. But glad to see it as a real place. Um, but anyways, that is that for this video. Make sure you like and subscribe to follow along on these series. I'm going to be talking a lot about national parks, urban legends, feelings you are, the feeling of being watched out in the wilderness, stuff like that, and a bunch of other things that I can think of for the next few months. And after that, I'm probably gonna do like a back to school thing. It'll be like school themed, so make sure you follow along for that. And if you like the video, make sure you like. It is completely free and it is also free to subscribe. So make sure you also do that. And I hope to see you in the next video, gentle viewers.